Alright, so SCS had a stream yesterday all about franchise in March to October. Now, franchise is a mode that's near and dear to my heart. It's a mode that I've played so long, ever since like the show 7. It's the mode that I've played the most. And I still play it to this day, even though I play Diamond Dynasty and Road to the Show. Franchise is a mode that I still like to play a lot. So today we're going to be talking about the things that they changed in the franchise mode itself. Either later today or tomorrow, I'll have a video out on the March to October stuff. So if you're interested in that, it'll be out, hopefully soon. But I kind of wanted to split it up into 2 smaller videos instead of 1 bigger one. So that's what we're going to do. So now let's get into the first thing that we have to talk about with franchise that they talked about, being the trade metric and logic. So first, we got to talk about the things that they didn't change. You can only trade between 2 teams still, and you can only trade a maximum of 3 players. You cannot trade money, at least they didn't say that you could, and all of that is basically the same. However, they did say that now the trade metric is going to be based off of 3-year war. It's going to be based off of the war of your player for the past 3 years, rather than just this year. With this in mind, you could see players potentially getting more or less, depending on how well they've done over a 3-year span, rather than necessarily it just being off of 1. Or off of overall, or off of potential. If they've had 3 good years, but maybe they're like a C potential, you might be able to get a little bit more for them, rather than just the whole thing seeing a C and being like, yeah, no, you ain't getting shit. Now with the trade logic, the top players that anybody could trade will get more of a premium back for their team. One such example that they used was Juan Soto. I think that we can all agree that during 21, you would see somebody like Trout or Soto or DeGrom or whoever it is get traded for like a bag of balls. So this year, they upped the return. One example they gave us was Juan Soto being traded to the Yankees for Anthony Volpe and Jason Dominguez. They of course mentioned it was the last year of the contract for Soto, but I think if we're being realistic here, I have a feeling it would probably take a little bit more than that, but at the very least, that's in the right direction. At least it feels like the trades, for the most part, are looking to be more realistic. Of course, there was one that they showed where it was like Joe Ross being traded for Anthony Volpe straight up, which would not happen. So I'm sure there's going to be a few kinks, a few things that look a little off as we go along, but you know what? At least it's a step in the right direction. And another thing that they kind of took care of was players being traded like a month after they sign with a team. That's no longer going to happen. So if a player signs with a team, you should at the very least expect them to be on that team by time the year starts. Next up, we're going to be talking about the budgets. So in years past, whenever you would have the budget on, because I know there are some players who like to have it off, whenever you would have it on, it would take an account for the entirety of the team when it comes to this CBT. This year, however, they said they're going to be only focusing on the 40-man roster, kind of like how they do it in real life. So in the example that they showed, the Red Sox would be saving about $5 million or so based off of paying, minor leaguers their contracts to be able to use towards the CBT. Now, sure, that's not a ton of money, but anything is helpful. Next up, we're going to be talking about the two-way player. This was a topic that I think a lot of us were kind of upset about when it came to MLB The Show 21. You wanted Ohtani on your team, or you were using the Angels and you were excited to use Ohtani. You would set him out for a year, and then he would hit fine for the most part. But then when it came to pitching, he would throw off a 6 or 7 ERA because the stamina never necessarily regenerated by time he was able to pitch next. Well, it looks like this year, everything along that line will be fixed. No longer will Ohtani or any other two-way pitcher be losing stamina instead of gaining stamina while they are DHing. So it looks like this year, if you want to trade for an Ohtani or any kind of two-way pitcher, it may actually be beneficial compared to last year. Alright, now we're going to be talking about the contract improvements and the offseason in general. In MLB The Show 21, the maximum amount of years was 15 and the maximum AAV or average annual value was $31 million. In MLB The Show 22, the maximum amount of years will be 15 and the maximum AAV will be $35 million. For some reason, they made like a big deal, like the maximum amount of years was 15, like it's new, it's oh my god. But it was in MLB The Show 21, so I don't know why they made a big deal of it, honestly. Made me kind of think I was going crazy, but hey, I just had to make sure I wasn't going nuts. Along with the contracts, the players themselves will have a less chance of signing with your team or any team before reaching free agency. I think we all know the pain of going through a year and hoping that a specific player will reach free agency so you could bid to potentially get them, but then they sign with their team before ever reaching free agency. I think we've all had that happen and potentially restarted a sim to be able to do it, but it looks like this year something like that will happen much less. They gave an example showing off a bunch of different people signing with their old logic from 21 and prior, but in their 22 logic, only 2 people signed. At least 2 major people signed. So now if we want to have a chance of signing whoever we want when it comes to free agency, there will be a much bigger and better chance of being able to do so. Which of course is like real life. And speaking of that, the players will also have a chance of taking longer to sign, just like in real life. This is something that I kind of missed back in the days of MLB The Show 10, 11, maybe even 12. I don't know when it stopped, to be honest. You had a chance to watch players get contracts, make your own offers, and then you could potentially wait weeks, maybe a month, to kind of determine, do you still want to go that way? Do you maybe want to go a different way? Is there a better free agent? You had options, and now it was like everybody signed within 2 weeks, and that was it. You maybe had like 1, 2, or 3 people that would take until like the middle of December to sign. But for the most part, everybody was kind of signing 2 or 3 weeks after free agency started. So now that'll most likely take players a little longer to sign. I think that's going to be for the better. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was the community request that they have gotten and apparently have taken care of. The first thing is the pitcher stamina for pitchers in the postseason. This is going to mainly, as they said, revolve around people that are aces such as DeGrom, Cole, Sale, Burns, the aces, or at least the prototypical aces. Those players will have a better chance of getting more stamina to pitch every 4 days or 3 days or whatever it is, to, like in a 7-game set, being able to pitch the first, 4th, and 7th game of the series. This will give you a better chance of having a 4-man rotation or even a 3-man rotation when you get further into the postseason. The second thing that they talked about was the transition log. They said a lot of people really wanted to know what might have happened earlier on in the season with trades or signings when they got closer to the offseason. They wanted to take a look, and you just couldn't because you can only see so far back. Now they made it to where if you're like in the postseason, you should be able to see all the way back to some transactions that happened in April, May, maybe March. I don't know. We'll see. And the last thing that they talked about was separate sliders for injuries for both simulation and in-game. Now, me personally, I didn't realize this was potentially something that was requested a lot, but it definitely gives players an option of separating them and making it to where maybe you want there to be less injuries in-game, but you have a better chance of having injuries in simulation or vice versa. But again, it was never really anything that I thought that they really needed to do, but hey, it's something that they did. But there you have it. Those are all the things that they showed off in the franchise section of the stream. Either later today or tomorrow, I'm probably going to be talking about March to October. So hey, if you want to stick around, maybe see that, consider subscribing and turning on the notifications. I plan on doing a lot of content when MLB The Show 22 comes out. Probably mostly DD, but if the franchise in March to October that we'll be talking about is as good as it at least seems, I definitely feel like I could do more involving that as well. So that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next one.